Welcome to the Tesla Life with your host, Mark Coughlin.
I don't
There
hear.
we go.
There we go. Okay, so I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, Casey.
Okay.
That was
But
weird.
we don't hear Mark. Yeah.
Right. Still, you can see you don't get the yellow box around you when you talk, Mark. That means no one's hearing you.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and it was working
He
for
was
me.
talking like a second ago.
Oh, I couldn't hear him at all.
Oh, I heard him. We were talking when we were picking the stories.
Oh, right. Yes, before the show.
Right.
But
how's that?
there we
That's
go.
much better.
There we
Before we
go.
get started, we got a full chat. We got Derek and Dana and me and Robert William.
Nice.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tesla Live number 269, August 31st, 2022. How is everybody
Yes.
tonight? Hope everyone is doing well. You can see that our production is partway on the road tonight. Some of us are at home base and some of us are on the road. I'll let you figure out who is who. But
there's a little sign there in the background that's a hint.
Stop giving away
Yes,
clues,
exactly.
Patrick. Come on, we're letting everyone play the game.
Over there. Way over there.
Yes, indeed. Welcome. So we got a bunch of news tonight, and we've got to keep things quick and concise because Casey does not want to be charged overage fees at the Supercharger. So
$1 per minute. You're welcome, Elon.
look out.
If you have to take a break and go unplug or move, that's okay. You can do that.
We'll let you do that. Absolutely.
What I'll probably do is unplug and hope it's not a full site when that happens, and then I'll just skedaddle after that. What I'm doing for this part of the project of what I'm up to, like, it's multifaceted. But what I'm doing now is, you know how everybody says, oh, you can't go on long trips in an electric car, blah, blah, blah. So I left Virginia at noon yesterday, and we haven't stopped rolling other than a couple times, instead of using a better route planner suggestion of, the bare minimum charge to get to the next stop, we went with the Tesla's suggestion, which is like 50 to an hour and a half between stations. And what I would do during those longer ones is I would nap. But most of the time, the Tesla was reasonable for between 30 and 40 minutes, even with my older battery. But yeah, so here we are at 18:04 local time the next day, and we're now in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, from just south of DC. So take that, whoever says you can't travel in an EV quickly overnight. I need to be able to take 1,000-mile journeys at the drop of a hat. How much more drop of a hat is that?
You're halfway across the continent.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, let's get rolling with the news this week. Oh, sorry, I completely lost. After I got the mute going, I am flustered. Patrick, how are you doing today from the coast?
I'm good. It's a hot one here today. We've had some of the rush hour energy events, and our virtual power wall plant was tapped by the local utility. Should be yep. It's hot, but it's all good here.
How many times has that been this year that your system's been tapped?
Oh, at least 3.
At least 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Probably more like 5, but I haven't kept track.
Okay. Very good. Well, on to the first story this week. This this is a bizarre story that just showed up last night, really. The insurance group called AXA, they performed a bit of a demonstration that was really perplexing. And what we've got here is we've got the ability to show you what it is. So we're going to share the screen here. Here we go. And you see this Model S sitting on its roof? Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So even they got the initials on it, AXA. So they painted the car up. They put it on a test track, and they did a demonstration to show that battery fires can be dangerous. So what they did is they ran this car in front of a bunch of people watching the presentation. It went up on a ramp, it flipped over, and then it caught fire.
Right,
all
and the
in
ramp
space
was
of a few
only
seconds.
the ramp was only on one side to force it to flip over.
Correct.
There was
So sort of like the ones they use to do the two-wheel
to do
balance,
stunt shows. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
But they just rolled it all the way over.
This one just rolled right over onto its roof. And then
So this is what we
screeched
call
to a stop.
movie magic. When a car flips over, the gas tank explodes and all the magic smoke comes out.
Yeah.
It's facts.
So this car sat there for a few seconds, and then all of a sudden there was like a light of a fire, a puff of smoke, and then some flames. Now, what the AXA admitted to openly is that it would not be in the public's best interest to demonstrate this in front of 500 people if it was an actual battery fire. So they told everybody that what they did is they removed the battery from this car, and they added some pyrotechnics to light a fire on their command to simulate a battery fire. This is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So they've got this in front of 500 people.
Wait. It's the second most bizarre thing we've ever seen. Remember,
no,
there's Mr. Dan O'Dowd.
I guess it's the most bizarre thing I've seen in the last 48 hours. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So what this thing was to prove was that that battery fires could be dangerous, but yet there was no battery fire. They couldn't demonstrate one. And instead, they lit the car on fire with pyrotechnics they set off themselves with a pack that was devoid completely of batteries. This is just, you couldn't make this stuff up. So it is
made up. This is all made up.
It's completely made up, isn't it?
No sane person could make this up. So
and then of course in their social media, I guess publication of this, they didn't make any of this any clear that this was going on. Not. They didn't make anything clear that the fire was not caused by a battery fire. It was caused by them flipping a switch to the pyrotechnics they installed in the car. They didn't tell that the car was upside down because they actually flipped it on a ramp. They didn't indicate that there were no batteries in the car at the time of it being flipped. So this is just bad on many different levels.
Mm-hmm. How do they get it on the ramp? Do they just drag it?
Right. So I watched for that. Yes, I specifically watched the video, and they have a tow cable, and so you can see it after the car flips and the tow cable. They start dragging the cable because I was wondering that if they took the battery pack out, how was the car moving?
Also, if the battery pack was in, it might not have flipped. Remember,
the low center of gravity would have made a huge difference.
Yes.
Which of course probably would have made the whole thing fail. Not only would the car have not have flipped, but there would have been no fire and there would have been no danger. So the insurance company would have nothing to show.
Well, they would have jumped a little bit.
Yeah, they could have done a Dukes of Hazzard jump, but it would have landed on all four wheels and safely come to a stop after the cable that was towing it stopped. So,
and it blew out the suspension.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't imagine the suspension likes when 48 pounds drops on it.
So I'm not sure why they would even do this though? I mean, they're committing libel or slander allegedly, and for what benefit?
Is it worth the hardcore litigation team coming after you?
Right.
That's what I was
see what
thinking
the point was.
after Elon publicizing that they're going to be putting together a hardcore litigation team. Why would you open yourself up to be prosecuted in this way?
Right.
Like it just doesn't make any sense.
You saw him give
so
the
many
warning to
different
a doubt.
levels.
He's like da, 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 and then he didn't. Then O'Dowd's like but we know that his lawyers are like Microsoft lawyers. It's not worth getting into that fight unless
They're
you were right.
poking the bear. They're poking the bear for sure.
So you know what this reminds me of? When Mark and I got our first Volts, there was this big hubbub about how the Volts could catch fire when they crash. But the crash test was conducted above the rated speed for a crash test. The battery was slam full at 100%. Normally, you would have driven somewhere. Then they rolled it over for a period of hours. And then they set it in the junkyard for 4 days. And then it caught fire. So I always was of the mind that if I'm still in the car by the time it catches fire, I've had a really bad day because it's been
really bad 4 days.
Yes, if you're in a crash car for 4 days, you're already dead.
Well, not necessarily, but it's not going to be good, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
So then they redid the test at an even higher speed with just the battery. But the battery was still slam full, and it was still above spec. Now it was a raw battery. And so what they ended up doing was they had Mark and I and several other thousands of owners come back, and they dropped the battery, did a stiffening campaign, so that when it did get pinched from the sides like that, it would redirect up over like in the passenger armrest area rather than through the battery. And so I only saw one Volt fire in real life, and that was a friend of mine. Her Volt got hit by a Jeep that was on fire, and then her Volt combusted after being, after the baton was passed.
But this, of course, this is just fake on a different level. Like I don't understand why it makes what.
At least the other one was based in reality.
Yes, yes, we know. If there happened to be a battery fire, if it really happened to come to light, it's a bad situation. I agree.
Yes.
But why would you go through all these lengths to actually try to simulate one without a battery? First of all,
why didn't they just use the lab tests? Like there are all these lab tests where they poke a nail through a battery.
Ignite pyrotechnics just to make your point that yes, this is what fire looks like. Like it's absolutely insane.
Right, like if this was a training exercise for first responders or to put out a fire, this isn't a real battery fire, so that's not going to be a valid
it's not going to be
training
helpful
exercise at all. No,
you
not at
can't
all.
train them on anything. No,
Right.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see if a litigation team at Tesla starts to pick this up and runs with it. As I said, it only came to light just last night, so plenty of time to start litigation if that's what's going to happen. But we'll certainly keep our eye on this as it moves forward. But just wanted to point out this very bizarre thing. After we saw the whole FSD hitting child thing, it's another
allegedly
another weird attempt to slap Tesla in under a week.
It wasn't a child; it was a child-sized mannequin.
That's right.
Yeah. And of course, the screenshots from inside the car that would never show the full screen as to what was actually being displayed on the screen. It's
allegedly
another targeted attack, basically, based on how it was filmed and how it was portrayed. And this AXA video is virtually the same in that type of a department. So
So when I get back east, if anybody knows Senator Markey or through any of your contacts, I want to get him in this chair. Show him FSD 10.69.2 or whatever one I get. Is he seems to be swayed by these sort of presentations, and they're wrong.
Yeah.
Has anybody in the chat got 10.69 yet? I'm curious. I have not. I know .1's rolling out to more people than the no dot did, the 10.69.
A thousand more people, and then it's going to spread out to the first group. So hopefully that means I get it before they decide to go wide with it. So what's going to happen there is if those first 1,000 people don't have any problems, I'm not even sure there's a different 1,000 people than the first 10.69.
That's sad,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then and then without waiting, they'll start rolling that one out, and then you'll start to see it on YouTube. And it was kind of interesting. Some of the safest drivers that didn't have a safety score ever were complaining they didn't get it for various reasons, and not because some of them were on strike, because they had phones or their family had phones or whatever the case may be. It was just a different criteria than the last couple releases,
Mm-hmm.
and so some people's feelings were hurt.
Aw.
Yeah. And Elon said, "Be quiet."
Stop your whining.
It was worse. It was worse than that. Oh man, it was a whole drama. Is that one of our stories? Can I do it?
That is not one of the stories today.
Okay, then I'll skip it. Derek, the price is about to go up in 5 days. So it's gonna get richer. So if you can somehow
September 5th, right?
Right. So if you can somehow do EAP, then at least whatever the new prices are, you should be around half if they keep up with what they've been doing with EAP in the past. I know that's a huge ask as well, but that one will go up as well, most likely. Maybe not at the same time, but we've seen in the past that one tends to go up every time it gets offered as well. So.
Next, let's talk about climate change in China.
Yes,
we've got a situation going on there. Casey, go ahead.
Yeah, so in China, they had a little bit of the same situation we're having here. Remember Texas and California, where it was just too hot, but especially Texas. Because California recovered, Texas kind of just went down. They both got fire, though, didn't they? Anyway, China had a similar situation. They needed the power to run air conditioners, hospitals, schools, that sort of thing. And so it was requested that that NIO battery swaps and the Tesla Superchargers go offline so that they could use that power for people who needed it immediately. And so they complied, and you get a little message on the screen that, hey, your Supercharger is not going to work today. I like the way that they let you know, rather than you just getting there and it's just dead. You get there and it's like, yeah, no, we're not doing that today. Sorry. Kind of like when, like, if you get to one and it's like peak time, they're like, hey, do you mind coming back in about 3 hours?
Yeah, allowing people to plan their day based on that charger not going to be available. And actually, other electric car manufacturers like NIO, they were affected too. Their battery swap operations had to stop.
Right. Because the battery swap charges while the battery swap
is intense on getting, of course, the battery they're going to put in your car to be charged. They stopped that operation for a time period as well.
Right. Yeah. Because if you don't have enough batteries, you got to quick charge them all, just as if it's a supercharge. One, the batteries are expensive. Two, they take up space. So if you had enough real estate and enough packs, you could trickle charge them overnight at off-peak hours. But they're a new company. I imagine they might not have enough to. So they were also asked to curtail their usage and are ordered. The party said go, and they said yes.
It's China.
Yes.
It was a command.
Yes, an offer you can't refuse.
Right.
So this is, I understand the grid needs this for vital functionality, but this is infrastructure that people are dependent upon. So if you're, unless they're just asking nobody to drive,
right. They might be doing that. Remember when one person got sick, they locked them all in their house.
Right, but even their gas stations use electricity to run pumps and do other things. So are they asking them to shut down as well?
Maybe But see, here's the cool thing about both NIO and Tesla. They both have the capability of being battery backed, so they can actually prop up the grid. If you command them to, rather than just turning off.
Yeah, it would be really nice if instead they said something like reduce your energy use, and if that means they have to charge at 50 kilowatt instead of 200 kilowatt, so that they don't put a large demand on the grid, or the ones that are solar powered can continue to operate, or the ones with battery backup can continue to operate. Just to say shut it down just seems like a step too far.
Right, and we've seen that here in the States when whenever there's a power cut, sometimes, like especially if it's a battery back station, sometimes the supercharger keeps running for a couple hours, days after the power's been cut, and people just like, oh yeah, well, I just supercharged, it's fine. So they could say, hey, give us half of that battery to prop up the grid, and then you can charge everybody else at 50 kilowatts and have a nice day. I mean, I know they don't have to bargain, but it does make everybody feel better.
They're definitely going to have to do something because, of course, this climate change is not changing anytime soon. They're going to experience these type of high electricity demand days for air conditioning in the cities, and that is not going to change. They're going to have to come up with something. So it would help everybody if they were to come up with a plan B now and start to implement it over time.
And this is global. I mean, in Seattle and parts of Oregon, they had to deal with the lack of buildings having air conditioner or sufficient air conditioner, I should say. In Mississippi right now, you can't drink the water in certain places because it's flooded, and they didn't have capacity for that. All of this extreme weather is a part of what we're fighting with. How do you call it, Patrick?
Yeah, we're fighting because we currently have a system that is not free from fossil fuels.
That's right.
So again, switching to electric drive as much as we can to eliminate some of that fossil fuel burning and the particulates, and of course the CO2 going into the air. It won't help this problem immediately overnight, but it will reduce the problem as time goes along if we can stick to those abilities to lower those emissions.
Yeah. And on the vehicles that have V2G, so it's not just the stations you're looking at. Remember all those school buses when they're off school or on summer break, they've been used in the past to prop up the depot or the school district or wherever they happen to be parked at. This, like, imagine if more companies had two-way EVs than just the handful that are out there. This could have been like a non-issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we will see if this continues in China, or if they start to make changes, because of course China's accepting electric vehicles much faster than North America anyways. So they're going to have a population that's switched over far before us. So if this is something that's going to be hindering them, they're going to have to address that now.
Right. I really like the point that Casey just brought up, that if you had vehicle to grid as a national requirement to sell EVs in your country, and then you have a day like this, you could have all of those vehicles supplying some energy to the grid. And that would be a massive amount that would be on tap when you needed it for the worst days.
Yeah, exactly, Dana. If you had EV power walls, you could prop up the grid and not mess it up. Exactly. Yeah,
EVs can be a grid stabilization feature, not a hindrance.
Yeah, I mean, because they seem to think that everybody's getting home at 5 o'clock and plugging in, but like, one, you got to fight traffic, and two, everybody gets off a different time of the day.
And if you're in a place,
the third is if it's regulated by time, the price is regulated by time. That will train the population to plug in when there's more power available because the price is cheaper at that time.
Yes.
Exactly. And then in a case like this, where like normally they would just pay you whatever you pay for the electricity, all of a sudden now they're like, hey, if you don't got to go anywhere, we'll give you like $3 per kilowatt hour. You're like, oh yeah, I'm not going anywhere. You can have it. And then somebody who does have to go somewhere will say, no, I got to go somewhere, and that's their choice.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a grid, let's talk a little bit about cellular grids. And an announcement was made recently.
Yes.
Casey, what's that?
So T-Mobile and SpaceX had a little event. They were going to make an announcement, and everybody was speculating, like, what is this? And that whole SpaceX Tesla phone situation came up for a minute, but remember Elon said them doing a phone was stupid, and that's not what they announced. So what they announced is for the satellite, the StarLink V2 satellites, they are actually going to be little mobile virtual cell towers. So for T-Mobile, as the towers go, as the satellite is going above, it's going to solve for the Doppler shift, both coming and going, and it's going to fill in the gaps in the T-Mobile network. And so what that's going to do initially is it's going to do text and slow data, so like MMS and SMS, and then eventually they're going to do voice calls, and then they're going to ramp it up to the full service. In addition to, somebody asked them in the audience, they said, hey, what about just putting a regular Starlink terminal or Starlink for Business terminal on the tower, and now you can do some of the rural towers without any backhaul? And the guy said, and Elon said, and I was like, yes, we've been saying this.
That's exactly what we've been saying, yes. I thought
It's
for
amazing
sure that's what they
it
were
took
going
the
to
question
announce.
and answer period to get that point across. They hadn't have thought of it.
Right. Exactly. They were doing
Or
radio
they-
backhaul and fiber backhaul. It's like, you got
Oh, they
the
have
birds.
thought about it. They just can't announce it yet.
Perhaps.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And so this kind of goes even further to, remember when everybody was fighting Dish for trying to do this but backwards. Dish was just trying to just stomp all over everybody's satellite. DirecTV was worried about messing up their TV service, and then all the cellular providers and SpaceX were worried about losing their ability to do their business because Dish would just be pooping all over their spectrum. This is how you do it. So they teamed up, and they're doing a share agreement with T-Mobile and using some of the spectrum that T-Mobile owns but has not yet implemented. And this is phenomenal.
Yes.
I left some space for Patrick to tell us what's even more cool on the technical side. But basically, Elon pointed out that that iWatch commercial where all the people are getting stuck and it saved their lives. SpaceX is going to do that for you. You'll be able to actually send a text out in the middle of nowhere when there's no signal.
Right. Yeah, that is pretty cool. This is cell towers in space.
Yeah.
Going 17,000 miles an hour, and you can connect
30,000 of them.
Yeah, the Doppler effect is interesting.
It's going to start in the U.S.
This big.
It's going, of course, as Casey mentioned, starting with version 2 satellites, version 2 Starlink satellites. And then the other thing they opened up during the conversation was we're starting with the United States, but we're putting the call out to all carriers across all countries. We'd like to reciprocate and allow people to make calls from those countries in and out of the United States as well. And they put the call out to all carriers to join in. And they would be able to produce a similar deal that would open up other countries to this ability as well.
So when in the announcement, T-Mobile was kind of like reaching out to Team Blue and Team Red a little bit, but they definitely bluntly on the nose said, hey, if you're a foreign carrier and you want your people to be able to use their stuff like as is when they come over here, set up a peering agreement with us or come by and license it. It seemed they prefer with a peering because their whole thing is one price. That's the other thing. Your price isn't going up on T-Mobile to use this feature, but that's their whole thing is one price worldwide. You don't even have to think about it. Just whip out your phone, do your thing. And so now you don't have to worry about if there's a signal. You whip out your phone, do your thing. And another thing that was brought up, a couple of people asked Elon, and he said yes to at least 2 or 3 people. They said, does this mean that the cars will now be able to use this service with Starlink for the cellular service? Since the cars, he repeatedly said the cars are too small to have put a terminal on, and it's not worth their time, blah, blah, blah. Now they can access as a terminal anyway. And so he said, yes, it's coming. That's exciting. So the question with that, though, does that mean are they going to leave Rogers and AT&T, or are they just going to talk directly to SpaceX? Like, did T-Mobile give them a little cut of the spectrum just to do their own, or are they going to switch to T-Mobile? Like, those are some interesting questions.
I think they're probably going to feel this out a little bit. They probably won't drop anything to begin with. They're going to do some massive testing on this and see if the numbers on paper add up to reality. I'm sure they believe it will, but you would not want to cut off your nose to spite your face in the beginning. You want to make sure that the new technology works, that these satellites that are speeding across the Earth will be able to hold and distribute the signal properly.
Yeah, and we're talking right now initially 2 to 4 megabits, which is great for text because text is like that's basically it was spare capacity from where the network was just basically keeping track of which phones were where and which towers. So that was already basically free. But then they mentioned that with the quality that we use for voice calls in this country, you can actually hold a couple thousand voice calls with that 2 to 4 megabits. So voice is probably coming up real fast, even though voice won't be there on day one.
Yeah, and even if
sorry, go ahead.
For the cars, AT&T should be worried that if Tesla's partnering with T-Mobile on this, that why wouldn't they use T-Mobile for all their other services that they need, even if it's not using the SpaceX satellites?
Right. Even the older new cars like mine are using eSIMs, so it's very easy to re-provision a new eSIM. Obviously, the very oldest ones you'll have to go out and pop a new chip in there, but
exactly.
I mean, like you said. So the other thing that came up is Elon mentioned for sure that these are going to be launching on Starship because they're so big.
Bigger,
but they were bigger. They're about 7 meters by 5 meters. So like his demonstration, he's not that big. His demonstration wasn't enough, and he did mention that there was a fallback plan for like a V2 light if something terrible happened with Starship not getting out, that they could do like a lighter package on Falcon 9. But he said don't hold your breath for that. Basically, they are pretty confident that these are going up on Starship, going up on time. And this is next year that you'll be able to start to see
on the big payload. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised because I mean you've seen satellite phones in the past. They're not small. They have these big antenna on them, and so
now they look like this.
Yeah, that was the surprising part to me. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, they're saying your current phone will work, and it doesn't require any different modification to it. It'll just work as is.
Right.
I'm on T-Mobile, so hooray!
Exactly. One of the friends of the show, Dan, he said that basically in the military that they could just give them like cheap Android phones or get the bulk deal on the iPhone, put them in a rugged case, slap them out there in their pack, and now all the soldiers have a satellite phone, not just the radio guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of feedback to a network, Tesla has modified the new mobile app to allow owners to reply back through the app itself to provide vehicle feedback. So you now have the ability to put some notes in and some information based on what you're experiencing out in the field. This doesn't necessarily have to be of service-related issues. It could be something that you noticed happened with FSD. It could be something that you noticed the vehicle behaves in a certain way when it goes over a bump or whatever. If you find things that are happening regularly or over and over again, you now have the capability of being able to deliver that note to Tesla, to their team to review. So this used to be something that was called the bug report that you could do through the car, where you would say bug report, and you could record a voice message from what you have found, and it was to alert a Tesla member at the other end that a new bug has come in. So this is kind of, I guess, a modification of that, but allowing you to text it to them through your phone application.
Well, this is actually better than that in the fact that the bug reports were only ever checked when somebody was in your car checking for service. So if you did a bunch of bug reports and your car never went in for service and you never alerted them to download the logs, they just sat there until we ran out of space and then they'd get cycled. So.
Oh, that's lame. That's so lame.
Yeah.
Why isn't that when I get back to my garage and it connects to Wi-Fi, why aren't they sending that? So I'm really happy they have this feature because there's an area near my house. There's a school zone. It slows down as you would expect in a school zone, but then the school zone ends. But it still thinks it's in a school zone for like the next 3 miles. And even though there's signs right there with 35 miles an hour, it's trying to do 25. And it's so I'm doing bug report. Every time I drive through there, I'm putting in a bug report, which sounds like no one's ever heard these bug reports. So now I'll be able to do that in the app as a passenger, snap a picture of this sign and have a geotag, attach that. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
I don't have it yet. I just looked. I don't know what version of the Tesla app you need to get it.
The app in the car, isn't it? But either way, one small exception of that is people in the beta. Sometimes they will pull the logs if you do the bug report and the camera snatch. So the other thing with this is there was an option for a high severity incident, and somebody pointed out that why aren't you filing a service ticket at that point if it's a high severity critical event?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because all the ones that we could all brainstorm at the time that the guy said that was like They were all actual like service issues, like either the supercharger is down or hey, my car is trying to crash into walls or whatever. Not that that was a real thing, but stuff that would be that critical, it would already be a ticket.
Well, yeah, like the stuff that you're going to bring it in for service is not something that you're, submitting through this. This is stuff that you're not going in for service. You're just wanting the company to be aware of a couple of conditions that happen over and over, or something that you've noticed could be a possible issue to other drivers or yourself.
Yeah. So like mine was in Minnesota, and as you leave Illinois, there are 3 signs for speed. The car reads them all. It reads the car speed 70, it reads the bus speed 65, reads the truck speed 60, and you can actually see it cycle through on the thing, and it slams on the brakes. It's like, oh, that's great. That's what I needed. So if my app had it, that would have been useful.
Yes.
I just hit the camera snap instead and hope that they understood why I hit it 4 times.
I wonder what it would do here actually in the province of Quebec, where on the highways it posts a maximum speed, and right under it posts a minimum speed. So,
yes.
So it says 100 kilometers maximum, and underneath it says 60 kilometers minimum. So I wonder what the system's going to choose for that. Actually, if I got anyone in Montreal that's watching this, let us know what happens when you're on the highway and you see that in autopilot.
Well, that's Motoko back there. She's
I think you're saying it's time for you to unplug.
Almost.
Next,
10 minutes.
Talk a little bit again about Canada. We got a notification that Tesla has been hiring some new designer team members to join the Supercharger group. What they're looking to do is basically double the number of superchargers in Canada. They're advertising for a new couple of positions, because they are looking to move the supercharger installation needle a little faster in Canada. So that's always great to hear if you're living in Canada or going to be traveling in Canada, that they're just like the US and other places across the world. The supercharger network is continuing to grow, and this is more evidence of that, that their commitment to it will continue. So that's good news to hear all around. Next, here's an interesting story that came up. Somebody did an analysis on Tesla's need, Tesla's
demand.
Not demand, but Tesla's, forecast that they're going to be building 20 million vehicles per year. And they started to look at, well, what's involved with that battery-wise? How many batteries? What are we talking about? And they calculated that they believe that Tesla will be spending about $100 billion, B with a billion, dollars on just the battery materials for 20 million cars per year. So
this was
that's just an unbelievably large number, but you know that a vehicle that's on average now is probably being sold for what, $55,000 is what a single car is going for on average.
Right.
You're looking at a ton of money for the sale of 20 million of those cars. So $100 billion in cost for just the battery pales in comparison to the money they're making for $60,000 per vehicle times 20 million vehicles.
Yes, and this was a study done by or not necessarily a study, an analysis done by it was like the mining association,
right? Mining, it's on mining.com, right?
And they have a good point, but then I pointed out on Sunday, I was thinking that, well, this is if you don't change anything, you do everything status quo. Tesla doesn't do almost anything status quo. So for one, they're using smaller batteries than much of the industry, and they're continuing to shrink them wherever they can. And then you're looking at for lithium and other materials that they need, especially the anodes and cathodes. They are looking for ways to mine it more efficiently. So so lithium, they don't actually need to either extract it from water or go dig it from a salt mine. They have a process so they can get it straight from the clay outside their facilities, and I imagine that uses less manpower, less resources. So that right there already, even if it's the same amount of material, that already reduces the outlay on the cost because they're not doing it the traditional way. At some point in the future, when they start doing it.
Yeah, and of course they're looking at their numbers today. The numbers that Tesla and the rest of the auto industry is now going to be pulling out of the mining industry are numbers that they've never seen. These are numbers that are sky high above what they've ever considered they would be producing in the past. So
that's why Elon said you're going to open a mint if you do this.
So these are, these numbers are tainted because it's the current technology and the current volume that's going out of those companies and corporations now. This is going to be something that you're going to see 100-fold increase as time goes along, if not more. So it's, definitely they will change as time goes along. These numbers are based on today's mining techniques and volume that comes out.
Yeah, so I was looking at this, and most people are not used to thinking at scale of 20 million, 100 billion. And so the first thing I did was the math. Okay, sorry, there's going to be math on the show, just a little teeny bit. $100 billion divided by 20 million cars is $5,000 per car. And when we know the batteries are the most expensive part of a vehicle, to say you're going to have $5,000 in material in those batteries is not shocking at all. But that's not a good headline. So that's not how they're going to present it.
Yeah, so it's definitely a narrative point that they're putting out there, trying to push their agenda forward. Although, as Patrick has mentioned, $5,000 a car for an entire battery pack is nothing shocking to us. We know the cost of the batteries. We also know that if you go the other way, that the profit off the car, when you say 60,000 times 20 million units, that's going to be 12 times higher than the price of the battery. So it's not, price is relevant based on the cost of the vehicle, the profit that the vehicle makes. So it is all relevant.
Yes,
and I'm pretty sure their point wasn't that this is a bad thing, because their members want you to go digging in the earth because that's what they do. So
right, yes,
but as you pointed out, Patrick, the framing is biased. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting story. Another one that came up was someone caught the actual CyberTruck on the side of a road in California, and it was being loaded onto a flatbed tow truck. But what was interesting, when I get to this photo here we are, found it. Let's share the photo.
Yeah, they called it a battle-weary Cybertruck. That was I don't know what they've done to it.
It's not very clean, but
it's definitely been in a dirty environment, maybe some off-roading. But it's got a whole bunch of different kind of camera systems on it. Maybe even LiDAR.
Yeah. Because remember, they always truth their systems with LiDAR, so it's not uncommon to see a Tesla test vehicle with LiDAR.
You can even see that the camera is taped the wire up to the top, and you've got another little sensor up top.
I wonder if that's another way to look forward and to the side. Remember the Lisa was talking about maybe putting the forward camera in the repeater. That could do that. The one thing that stood out to me, other than the LiDAR or whatever on the nose, was those the sensor calibration wheels they put out when the car's almost done. We've seen it on Model S. When bring the D. We saw it on Model 3, all editions. We saw it on Model X. And we saw it on Model Y. Whenever we see those wheels, the car is like basically out in a couple weeks. I don't mean 3 weeks. I don't
think it'll be a couple weeks.
Wishful thinking, yeah.
No, I mean like less than a year, a couple weeks. So like less than 52. which lines up with Elon's, by the middle of next year comments constantly.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
times two.
Exactly.
But that's all those I got excited because usually when you see them, it's not too far off.
It's getting close to the end. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Well, Patrick's got our next story about a virtual power plant.
That's right. I love the VPPs. So this is from Tesla Righty by Simon Alvarez, and it's titled Tesla is quietly building another virtual power plant in Japan. So
It's huge.
Miyakojima virtual power plant has exceeded 300 homes. So this is one of the country's largest VPPs using household battery storage. And in addition to all the great benefits that the owners have, like being able to have power during a typhoon-caused blackout, with this VPP, like others, these owners can supply power to the grid when it needs it most. They have a video in this article where they interviewed several of the owners, and they said things like, sharing stored energy with each other as a community is something that is quite noble. And another one of them said that I want to do my part to reduce CO2 and keep our oceans beautiful. I just really liked that community mindfulness that was happening there. I thought that was really cool. And my final thought for this is, if you live on an island, it is not unreasonable to be concerned with climate change. and
we've seen several island nations.
Island.
Right, like look at Maldives. They are having trouble keeping all their islands. They've lost a few already. This is very real.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it certainly works in favor of people on an island to work together to work against this problem that is facing all of us. But as Patrick has mentioned, it's a little bit more acute when you're on an island and you've got millions of people on that island, on that group of islands. So it's definitely a big motivator to try to do the best you can with the resources you have and to be able to fight off this climate change.
Right. We talked about the heat wave that was happening in China earlier. If they had more virtual power plants, maybe they wouldn't be asking NIO and Tesla to shut down their infrastructure.
Well, and telling them, hey, turn it off.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's a new pilot project that's coming. California has decided that it's going to pilot a new project to cover water canals with solar panels. So the state already owns, of course, miles and miles of canals that feed from reservoirs to urban areas and to farmland. And they're going to select a number of different canals with a test amount of mileage, so just a number of miles for the placement of these solar panels that will cover the canals and reduce water evaporation from the sun, keep the water a little cooler, and on top of it, collect solar energy from a stationary solar array that would be placed over these canals. And of course, the state already owns the canals, so they're not having to rent the land to put the solar on it because it's theirs. So this is a new endeavor for the state of California. We've seen this in other parts of the world. Other countries have done this. And California is now deciding that they're going to try it out. And my hat's off to them for, testing some of these abilities. We don't know if it's going to be, the science is behind, of course, the evaporation, which every drop of water they can save is a benefit to the citizens of California. But how much energy it's going to produce, what the cost will be, and when you extrapolate that over the number of canals you're going to put it over, you've got to come to a decision. But this at least allows them to collect real world data in the area that would actually be installed. So it's a good idea to test these things out on a pilot project, and then collect the numbers and the data and can make a decision going forward.
Verify your hypothesis is correct before you go spend millions of dollars. The other cool thing is their tests. They're doing several tests. They're doing straight sections of canal and they're doing curved sections of canal, so that they can see basically what works best for them and see if the investment makes sense to do it in both areas. And as we keep pointing out, California is having a water crisis along with much of the West. But they're at the end of the Colorado River conglomerate, and so everything that makes it to them, they need to utilize responsibly.
Exactly. Exactly. Next, Casey's got a story about 4680s, and I've got a photo to share for that as well. Let's see.
I remember now. So there have been some. Well, there's a lot about 4680s. So there's been the drone army, of course, has shown us this stack of batteries inside Giga Texas, and you'll notice that they are labeled YSB. So Y from Model Y, structural battery. And if you look at the top, you can see the seat risers are attached to these structural battery packs. So you can be sure they're structural battery packs, probably from Cato Road, or maybe locally in the factory and just stacked up. But you can't say, oh, these are probably just 2170s and they're just ready to go. No, because Tesla doesn't put seat risers on 2170s. That's exciting.
So explain that to me. So if you have a structural battery pack, the 4680 is not the only cell that can go in there.
Correct, but that's the only cell that Tesla is putting in structural battery packs, because they have to tool it and train it, and it's just not worth their effort to make a structural LFP or structural 2170 or worse, a structural 18650. So
as far as we know.
As far as we know, as far as we've seen, as far as they've let on.
Yeah, they have said that the 2170 is not a structured pack, as the 4680 is.
Right.
So yes, they are building Model Ys with 2170s, but that is not a structural battery pack, as the YSB indicates in the photo from the second floor of Giga Texas.
Right, with the risers, and I've mentioned that a couple times. You can make a structural pack out of anything, even probably pouch cells. But Tesla will probably never use pouch cells based on anytime soon anyway, based on Elon's comments about how he feels about those.
And of course, you can go to those videos that Sandy Monroe has put out about the 4680 structural pack and how they're packed in this pink foam glue material.
The goo of
that keeps it all stuck together along with the cooling rods that run between it. But it's something that is difficult to peel apart, which of course, if you never have to take it apart, why would it not be difficult? And of course, it's a structural pack, so it's going to be difficult to take apart in the first place.
Exactly. I'm gonna move you guys so I can see what this thing is 100%.
Exactly.
Well, I'm the only one here, so.
Casey, do you have to go out and unplug?
Not yet. It's still balancing.
All right.
Okay.
So Patrick's got our next story about the great state of Louisiana.
Oh yeah. So things are getting hot in Louisiana. So
and it's not just the climate.
Right. No. Yes, it's in the courtroom. So Tesla has sued the Dealers Association and state officials because they want to sell cars directly to customers in the state. So this is by Darren John, and I'll just read a little bit of it. Tesla's filed a lawsuit in Louisiana that, if successful, would finally allow it to sell its EVs directly to consumers in the state. Tesla says the current law, which restricts its ability to do so, violates its constitutional rights. So I really like the fact that they've named the Louisiana Automobile Dealers Association in this. And the reason that they say is that they have colluded to get these laws into place to block Tesla with what they called unduly restrictive, protectionistic, anti-competitive, and inefficient state regulations and laws. So Tesla also argues that this lawsuit, that the defendants have attempted to prevent them from leasing vehicles, operating repair shops in the state. So there are over 3,000 Tesla owners in the state of Louisiana today that are adversely affected by this law, because if you can't get your car serviced, if you can't lease a new one, if they're putting all these roadblocks in front of you. So anyway, it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. Louisiana is not the only state that has such restrictions, and
South Carolina
is, yeah, exactly. There's you could add a lot to this list. Tesla has gotten concessions in other states where they've done this. They've often settled out of court with some special carve-outs for them, which is strange, because you should have one set of rules and not make special carve-outs for certain companies just because they were the ones that sued you. Yeah, that they'll say, oh, you can have the 3 stores you have now, but you can't open any more. Yeah, forget that. I mean, this is consumer choice. This is free market. Right. This is capitalism. This is consumer advocacy. This is what America's about. Yes, yes. If you say you're pro-business, then get out the way.
Right.
There you go.
Exactly. And of course, it's the Dealers Association, the actual government officials have been named in the suit, because they determined that, as Patrick mentioned, they had gotten together before the move of Tesla and changed the laws to actually prevent somebody that does not have a dealer network for coming into the state. And the timing was very suspect based on that. And they're able to go back in the notes, and it turns out that some of the state officials, they own Honda dealerships, and they own other automobile dealerships in the state. So looks like they were just kind of stacking the deck in their favor in order to keep their wallets padded.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see also what donations they got from these groups.
Right, the ones that don't own them themselves. Yeah. The other cool thing that they pointed out that their constitutional rights are being affected, because I always was of the mind that before we got the court that we have today, that if this made it to the court, it's pretty cut and dry, and they're going to just basically destroy their own case by letting this thing get there. And so now Tesla's basically said they're going for it. So that's really cool to me.
Exactly. So we'll have to see. And of course, if Tesla's successful here, this can also be, help them in other state cases as it moves forward, because it can be something that they can pull upon the victories in these cases in order to push other cases forward. So that'll be good news if they can win this.
Right. If you're a hotshot lawyer and you want to argue before the Supreme Court, which is always good on your CV, maybe you should consider joining Tesla's. What was the
legal
phrase?
Team? Yes.
Yeah. What was the phrase they used for this legal team, though? Hardcore. That was it.
Hardcore.
Yes. Hardcore trial lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Well, with that, we've come to the end, and not a moment too soon, because Casey is taking up a supercharger spot, and I got to believe he's down to his last percentage point.
I'm at 100%, but it still says calculating, so it's doing that last little balancing at 2 kilowatts. So as soon as it says it's done, I'm going to unplug it and then park it, the restroom, and then get back on the road. And then who knows where we'll do what drives us from.
There you go.
Hopefully not the side of the road. Hopefully at like a rest stop or
something. So Casey, any shout outs for the end of the program?
Yeah. So I'll catch you on Sunday over at youtube.com/Casey Green. That's KACEYGREEN. And then I might say some more about what happened to this trip, but I didn't record any of it, so probably not. But the project that is a part of, some of you guys might enjoy it, and there'll be more on that as it comes to fruition. I don't want to count my chickens for the hatch. Exactly. So I want to have everything lined up and then be like, bam, here it is. Rather than, that stuff I was talking about, it didn't go through. We missed step 7 and step 12.
Very good. So follow Casey at his YouTube and get involved with his Sunday chat that happens every week. Patrick, what's happening? Yeah. Patrick, what's happening on your end of the country?
Hey everybody! So we need 3,000 more subscribers to this channel, and if we get them, I'm going to buy something from Mark. He doesn't even know what it is, so it'll be a surprise. You guys will. If we
Awesome.
get these 3,000 more, then everybody will find out what I'm going to get Mark, and hopefully it can go right there in his background somewhere where you can all see it during the show.
Nice. I like it.
So my usual shout outs, as always, I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association. You can find us at oeva.org. And I blog occasionally at carswithcords.net. Check it out.
Fantastic. And now Patrick's got me thinking. I can't even believe what he has announced, because that wasn't even planned, folks. Patrick is flying this
I planned it
by the seat of his pants. Just letting things go. So with that, we thank you all for joining us this evening. If you have some time next week, you can join us on Wednesday, and together we can find out what is happening in the Tesla life. No exit music, but we do want to thank Lee Moon anyways.
I've got a way to do it. Thank you, Lee Moon. So we're not starting the show over. It's just the music again.
Stay positive, test negative. Bye, everybody.
So,
have a great
programming
week,
note.
all.
Yes. Programming note, the podcast will be late this week.